We've pretty much covered what Starkey has to say about this anyway. He's been very specific. He says, look, I made specific plans so that I could tour with them. I've been loyal to this band. I made a bit of a mistake, but the big mistake was from Roger Daltrey. I happen to agree with him. All right, keep this up. He's in, he's out. Pete has nothing to do with it. He's Mr. I wash my hands of the whole thing, as if being Pontius Pilate is a good thing, right? Oh, nothing can come bad of this. I don't know. Roger hires everybody. It's not me. He hires the band members. I have no say-so in that. And then they fire him, or rehire him. And Pete comes out as the spokesman saying, yeah, we talked it out. We're okay. We're good. Hey, everything's happening, right? Then they fire him again. And this time, Pete all of a sudden grows a set of balls and goes, hey, I've had to fire that man before. It's a tough gig, but somebody's got to do it. Andy? Like little Barney Fife, right? Trying to act tough and all of that. Since then, we found out that Zak actually had a gig offer with Oasis, and now he can't do that. Now, Zak, whether you think he's just a hired gunner or a member of The Who or a on and off member of Oasis, can no longer, he is not going to be drumming for The Who or Oasis. A big loss for him and his professional career in the year 2025. It's not going to be a good Christmas at Zak Starkey's house. Well, relatively speaking, I'm sure he's well off. He's done a fine job. By the way, I think he's a great drummer. I do. Out of Famous Sons, Jason Bonham, I think is better, but just by a level, a shard. And then you got Zak. I think he does a great job. In this new article, though, and this is why I wanted to put together this stream, and I knew I'd have to reinvent the story, not reinvent, or reassemble the story up until this point so that everybody's current. There is some new nonsense. There is some news from the mouth of Pete Townshend, all right? And this is a UCR article, so it ought to read a little better than the last one. Here it says that Pete Townshend is a full-time member of The Who, but not even he fully understands what happened to cause drummer Zak Starkey to be dismissed from the band. Well, at last count, I thought he knew exactly. We covered his statements. I fired him before, gotta be tough, gotta whip him into shape, Mildred. That kind of statement. But they're saying, well, he's confused. Well, let's go on. Starkey was fired back in April after Roger Daltrey was reportedly displeased with his performance of The Song Is Over. Oh, boy. More than The Song Is Over at this point, at the Who's concert in London. But just a few days later, he was reinstated, and Townshend publicly noted that it was a result of communication issues. Starkey was then dismissed for a second time and replaced by drummer Scott Devores. Well, what do you call a drummer who takes over another man's livelihood? I think he's a devourer. Hey, guess what? Scott Devores also happens to be the drummer for Roger Daltrey's normal touring band. And he gets the gig. Yeah, I'm like a detective. I've got my notebook here, folks. All right. Suspects. Ooh. Well, we've got the usual suspects. Zak fucked up. A. B. Pete Townshend can't make up his mind, but maybe he fired him. And Roger Daltrey, who seems to be so egocentrical, he's a suspect. And of course, management, because Zak Starkey did say in that second article I couldn't cover that it was the Who's management that came very apologetic to him, but matter-of-factly saying, I hate to have to say this to you, but you're not going to be drumming on the upcoming American tour. We're going to have to let you go. So there's our four suspects in this rock and roll whodunit. It was either Zak Starkey did himself in, Pete Townshend did him in, Roger Daltrey did him in, or it was the Who's management. In a new interview with iPaper, I'm not familiar with the publication, Townshend appeared to agree that Starkey's performance was fine. And yet we've heard Pete Townshend say that he agreed and concurred that the performance wasn't up to snuff. Here he's quoted as saying, "I couldn't see anything wrong." This is Pete Townshend talking. What you see is a band who haven't played together for a long time, but I think it was probably to do with the sound. I've lost my sound man as a result. So evidently, he didn't say he fired his sound man. He lost his sound man as a result. He's going on public record. This is the Court of Appeals right here with you folks. This is his statement unto you, the tribe. Right? Where did that sound man go, and who did him in? Townshend continued, "I think Roger just got lost. Roger's finding it difficult. I have to be careful what I say about Roger because he gets angry. If I say anything about him at all, he'll be sacking me next." Ooh. That second sentence, he says, the first sentence, he says, "I have to be careful with what I have to say." And then he follows that with, "He'll be sacking me next." But that's not to say that he sacked Zach. Here we go again, the waffling back and forth. It's a decision Roger and I tried to make together. And now notice he said tried to make together. He isn't saying it's a decision that Roger and I made together. No, he says tried to make together, but it kind of got out of hand, which is what he said in his second statement after reinitiating Zak Starkey back into the band. Townshend also noted that it was Daltrey's original idea to bring Starkey into the band to begin with. I didn't invite him in, right? More washing of the hands, Pete. Pontius Townshend. Here we go. I don't know quite why he chose Zach, but Zach is another Keith Moon. Really? He's not that good. There's very few drummers on the planet that ever existed that's quite that good. Very few. He comes with the real bonuses and real difficulties. See? Back and forth with Pete the whole time. Here we get the very latest from the Who, folks. There's what you got to work with. Okay? And here are the usual suspects. And we've heard from all of them. We've even heard from Zach regarding management. Was it management that fired Zach? In one way, you would say it was. It was management that informed him for sure, and management even saying they watched the show and didn't see the mistake. So, is there reason to believe that management, in this case, was merely following orders? And if so, by who? Well, you have the traditionally recognized leader of the Who with Pete Townshend, don't you? So he's the next suspect. And we've gone over like a fine tooth comb over his statements several times just tonight. And he's a waffler. So as detectives, ladies and gentlemen, never trust a waffler. There's something wrong. Their statements can't be trusted or entered into the equation other than statements that may be hinting at yet another culprit. Okay? The other culprit would be, well, we'll get to him in a minute. Of course, the next suspect is, hey, look, it's not a case of murder. It's not a murder mystery, Michael. Zach did himself in. Worst case of unaliveness I've ever seen. He made a mistake and they called him on it. We've talked about that. We know what kind of mistake he made. You know, as a musician, I'm telling you, there's no band on the planet that couldn't have got past that blurb. All right? But the song, the audience noticed the fuck up when an individual opened his mouth. The individual who suggested the song. The individual who sang a portion that the Who never performed live. He was lost. So that individual forgot where they were in the song. Pete Townshend tells us we hadn't been gigging a lot, so we needed more practice, and we didn't have practice. Who did he blame? Tab it up. Where's the fingers being pointed? Our final suspect, Roger freaking Daltrey.